Mr. Feldheim to do the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First item on the agenda is to approve our agenda.
Move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. If you would note that under number 6, it should say Dirk Rogers instead of Dirk Jones. That's the only change. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment. Anyone have anything to speak on that's not already on our agenda? Go ahead, sir.
My name is Jamie Fisk. I live in Tulare, South Dakota. Been involved in research in the pipeline since January.
Sir, we have that on our agenda.
Okay,
So
but I want to just address you, because I'm not on the agenda, I can't talk to you. I want to commend this county commission for being bold in writing an ordinance that's going to protect your citizens in the county of Brown County. And you are a leader in the state, because I've talked to Beetle County, Kingsbury, and Spink, and they all withdraw. They do not want to do anything. And if you talk to the PUC, the only way this is going to go in the ground safely is what you've done. The 500-foot or the 1,500-foot setback and the 6-foot depth is not exclusionary. I was on a meeting the other day, and a lawyer by the name of Blackburn, I asked that question: can you exceed the federal standards? The state and the commission can, according to him. I wanted to just commend you for what you've done.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else have anything under public comment, either online, telephone, or currently in the building? Morning, Mr. Jones.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, seeing no more public comment, thank you, sir, for your input. We'll move on to item number 4, moratorium on planning and zoning regarding the Summit CO2 pipeline. Is there anyone here that would like to start out the conversation? Our state attorney is just walking in. We'll let him get in the room. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'll start it. My name is Ed Fishback. I live in northern Spink County. I grew up in Brown County, spent most of my life there. And I do have skin in the game here, because my oldest son is a fireman and a paramedic here with your city police department, or city fire department here in Aberdeen. So if this pipeline goes into effect and he gets called out on a leak, he will be affected. I'm here to encourage you to adopt the moratorium, besides what you've done on the setbacks and things other, and the ordinance that you've done. I know it's been said, and I've heard rumors that you've got comments from possibly state's attorneys or other figures saying that you don't have the authority to do that. I'm here to tell you that that is false. You do have the authority. And I have a statement here, and this gentleman mentioned Mr. Paul Blackburn. He is an expert on this thing. And I don't know how much time, but if you allow me, I can just read excerpts. It says, I know it's been told that the federal government will do the regulating. They will not do that. They do not have the authority. The Federal Pipeline Safety Administration, these CO2 pipelines are something new. They weren't prepared for this. In fact, the leak that occurred in Satarsha, Mississippi 2 years ago, they just now are getting around it like a month ago and put out a report about what happened on that and admitted that they don't have proper protection. By the way, that company was fined $4 million for their neglect and the way it was put in. The Pipeline Safety Act prohibits the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration from issuing or enforcing setbacks or otherwise determining the location or route of a pipeline for safety or any other reason. The mistaken belief that the federal government regulates setbacks appears to be based on a misinterpretation of a section 195.210 of the Federal Pipeline Safety Regulations. And then further on down, the Pipeline Safety Act clearly states that PHMSA may not determine the location or routing of a pipeline. Therefore, PHMSA may not issue or enforce a regulation that allows it to determine pipeline location or route, nor may it interpret an old regulation. And I'll get to the point where it says you do have the authority. No federal law exists that regulates the routes of oil and CO2 pipelines on private and state-owned land. Some federal laws, such as Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, regulating construction on land actually owned by the federal government, control the route of a pipeline at particular locations. However, these laws do not grant any federal agency the authority to generally determine the route of an oil or CO2 pipeline on private, state, tribal, or local government lands. No reasonable argument exists that state routing of oil and CO2 pipelines prohibit a county from regulating the route of a pipeline. The county may determine its location just like it can any other land use, including setbacks or determining the route of the pipeline through the county. You actually have the authority to determine how it's routed through your county if you allow it to go through. And here's the final thing in this statement. South Dakota state law does not regulate route and instead leaves such regulation to counties. But South Dakota law does have a construction permit process under which the Public Utilities Commission may supersede, quote, unreasonably restrictive, unquote, county ordinances. Now what that means, if you would have put in your ordinance that you wanted to set back, let's say 5 miles, that would probably be kicked out and said it was unreasonable. But 1,500 feet is not unreasonable, and you're on very solid ground on that. But I would also encourage you, the fact that what's going on now, and the fact that the PUC has granted Summit an indefinite period, which they did at their last meeting, which I attended, to grant them an indefinite time frame to come up with a set route. I think you need the moratorium in place also, to give you more time, because once that set route is determined, you may want to go back and relook at your setback. All you're asking for is a 1-year moratorium, would be my suggestion, which is what we're asking for from the Coalition of Landowners, which I represent. We're asking the counties to put these in place to protect your citizens from what's going on. And if maybe you're aware, maybe you're not, right now the company Summit is engaging in surveying. Our landowner easement team has a injunction filed in McPherson County that our attorney is representing us on, because about 2 weeks ago, landowners are receiving notice that they are being forced to let them survey on their property even though they may not want them. They're giving 30 days notice to the landowner, and then they're telling them after that 30 days notice that the landowner is forced to give them a 45-day time frame to go on their land. Now, we're not talking about physical surveys. We're talking about actually doing boring, small excavating with backhoes when people have crops out there, so that's why everybody's resisting that. So, I know most of you attended the PUC public hearing, as I saw you there. It was held at the Ramcota. And if you remember Summit's presentation when they had up on the screen that they intend to get 100% voluntary easements, that they don't intend to use eminent domain, I'm here to tell you that that was a lie then, and they're still lying about it. All the while they told you that, and that was up on the screen, they had already applied for eminent domain in the state of Iowa when they were telling people that. And right now, the fact that they're using this 30-day notice, the letters they sent out, they're using a amendment that was passed in 2016 by our legislature that is part of the eminent domain law. So they're in effect using eminent domain right now to send these letters out to landowners and trying to get on their property for surveys that nobody wants them to be doing. And so we are asking the commissioners, that's more important than ever that you put this moratorium in place, because it's happening in Brown County too. I mean, they're going out, you're aware that's been going out, they've been boring through some of your paved highways, and people have been watching them without permission. My sister-in-law, a couple, 3 weeks ago, was following them around in some of your counties, was just watching them, what they were doing. She never engaged them, never talked to them. 2 hours later, after she got home over noon hour, your Brown County deputy showed up in her yard. They had turned my sister-in-law, who was 70 years old, in for harassing them. And she had not even talked to them or engaged to them. So these are the types of tactics that are going on. I have a landowner in northern Spain County, a young gal that's home on maternity leave. She called me just the other day. She got one of these letters that I referred to. She refused them to survey, and she was told by their company rep, "Ma'am, we're going to do this the easy way or the hard way. Either you're going to let us get on the easy way, or we'll get a restraining order on you from the state." And she said, "Come ahead." But these are the kind of tactics that are being used, folks. So I'm asking that you represent your landowners and give us the protection we need. And for your own good, I think you need the moratorium in place. And I'll answer any further questions you may have. I don't want to take up all your time. I know there's other people who want to speak, so I'll address anything else that you want to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Fishbeck. Anyone else wish to comment?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
My name's Janet Hedges. I'm a landowner just west of Aberdeen. So, first of all, safety. Do you realize this isn't a neighborhood? Do you realize the residents, Aspire, Drew Court, Darien Drive, our property, there's humans and livestock right there. This is where this pipeline is. It's in a neighborhood. It's down in some remote area. In the Aberdeen News, and the CDC has listed, as he mentioned, the leak. Now, this is serious. This is dangerous stuff that's going to be in our neighborhood. This is a neighborhood, and it's within how far of the city limit of Aberdeen. And no one knows about this. This company has not told these people. Are any of them here? No, because they don't know about it. They don't know what's going to be in their backyard. Economics, property values are going to plummet. Are they going to be able to sell their property when a pipeline is right there next to it? The businesses across the highway, they're taking our land, which is along the highway, and we talked about economic development in this county. It's going to squash all of that. Anything west of Aberdeen, there's a pipeline there. Who's going to want to build there? Who's going to want to buy the land? All these property values are going to be worthless. This summit, they have called us. You can't trust them. As he said, the stories keep changing. We don't know what's going on. They eminent domain. We don't have, as landowners, have any rights. So we're looking to you, the commission, to support us. That's what we've elected you for, to support us, landowners. And this carbon, it's been out there. It hasn't harmed anybody so far. Why all of a sudden do they have to, contain it, and then it becomes dangerous? There's just so many facts out there. So, we want this to stop, put the moratorium on it, get the details, but we have rights as landowners. Like I said, this isn't a neighborhood. These are houses. Drew Court, look at all that. There's over 100 families that live right in this area, just in our area. This pipeline is in their backyard, and they don't know it. Aspire. There's a lot of businesses there, and people whose your safety, it's going to be at risk.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I permitted to talk again?
Go ahead.
Because I had some other information I wanted to share with you. I didn't know that I could talk during this time, and that's why I jumped ahead of you. I have looked at the docket over and over and over, because Chris Hill, who represents, he's an engineer for Summit, told me that it was in the docket somewhere, and I finally found it. Under Appendix 3, Environmental Plan, 2.2, you have to go down to paragraph 5, and that's where the landowner can stipulate how deep this is and how far it is from their buildings before they sign their easement, and it has to be done during the easement process. In his conversation with me at 2 different times, he made the comment that in some places it will be 9 feet under the roadway. Okay? So, I don't know if you can believe that or not. The other thing I wanted to point out, for every quarter mile they go across land, they're going to take 110 feet corridor. That landowner will get approximately paid for 3 acres. So if you have a half section, that's 6 acres. If you have a section, that's 12 acres. I talked to one gentleman the other day in Huron, has land in Sully County. He was going to be crossed a half mile. They offered him $5,000 in his easement, which is nothing. for what they're asking.
One time.
One time, yep.
All right, thank you. Good
Mine's
morning.
just a little, agree with everybody here. Ed, what he said is 100% right. You guys have way more power than what maybe you think even when it comes back to this. They told us at that meeting, we gotta work with our counties to go through this. And this is just a one-year deal to extend safety so you guys can get an ordinance to write it up right, you know? This is all new stuff, nobody knows, and they are being very damn secretive about it. Because I've been talking about this since this first thing came out. Friends still don't really know what the hell's going on in towns that are 4 miles from these places. And they wanna come right north of my house, right through the operation. So, how do I plan for anything in the future? Could we get plans and maybe make a couple of hoop barns up there, and they come through? That's not an option, and they just get to take what we've got. We got the trees planted and stuff already set up to do this. So am I supposed to get building permits already now for something that might happen in, 10 years? I mean, 12 yet, we're still in the process if we wanna do this or not, but, like, there's just things like that that are totally shot if this happens to go through. Like she said, these property values, and I know Summit has given you guys a lot of information on these different things, and they've been spot checked. Sully County spot checked them guys, and what they were saying for this revenue gonna come in, they said it gonna bring $750,000 in. Comes back, was only gonna be like $50,000. If you can believe it, some numbers got misaligned in there someplace from what Summit spoon-fed this company, Ernst & Young. So, just all things to take into consideration. There's a lot more people that this affects than are in this room, and majority don't even know this is happening yet in the area for a company that's been so transparent for everybody. And every time you talk, it's a different story, a different saying, and oh, you want a little deeper, we'll go deeper. You don't, oh, it's not gonna hurt that. I mean, I had neighbors, which Freddie isn't here, but literally 400 yards north of his house. He would have never known anything about this except that we were telling him, and now he's all on board and everything. This is just, there's not enough known about this yet. And maybe if we can get a year extension, maybe this big money grab that's trying to happen with this thing will go away, because that's how it looks like it is, and it's all a money thing, and this carbon thing is as low as it's been in the air right now. For as bad as we're making it, it's as low as it's been in however long. So I just think that's where I'm at. I urge for the moratorium, so.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, man,
Go ahead.
I own this quarter that he talked about, that runs north of Freddy's. And I suspected another quarter of mine too. And this is my family here. I'm so concerned about this, just so you know.
Thank you. One of the issues that we're facing is we seem to be getting conflicting information. On one hand, we were told this morning that we do have authority, and we've also been told that we don't. So, Mr. State's Attorney, can you shed any light on that part of it? Or do you need to do some more research?
The research that was done through the Risk Alliance
Yep.
indicates that the federal government does regulate a large portion of this. Have I site-checked every case mentioned in that 80-some-odd long white paper? No, I haven't gone through and site-checked each and every case. I do have a lot of confidence in the firm that did conduct this research and the individual attorneys who did conduct this research. That is not to say that either side is right or what a court is gonna decide, but the indication is that the federal government does regulate this issue. Now, in that regulation, they do leave open areas for the state and local governments to regulate on their own. Whether that is full regulation or partial regulation, that's to be determined and sparsed out. I think I had a conversation with you yesterday on this issue as well, to figure out exactly what's left open for state and local governments. And ultimately, that'll be determined by a court on this issue. The indication I have is that state and local laws will be preempted by federal regulation. How much of that and what we have left to regulate is in that white paper that was delivered, and it was spelled out pretty specifically what the Risk Alliance, what they view, or those attorneys viewed as left open for the counties to regulate. Given my understanding of preemption and the Dormant Commerce Clause, I agreed with the conclusions of that white paper that it does leave open a narrow category for state and local governments to regulate. And rather than go through that right now, I would refer you to that on that paper on what's left open for this body to regulate.
Okay? Go ahead, Doug.
The counties that are involved with the sole plan route, do most of those counties have a moratorium on? And if so, if there's a county, for instance, on Spink, Edmonds, McPherson, if they have it on, and we sit between them, does it actually affect us in any way by us having a moratorium on? I mean, are we just part of the holdup to make the connection the rest of the way through? I guess that would be my question. How many counties actually have the moratorium from where this pipeline runs through? I mean, if there's 15 counties and there's only 2 that aren't doing the moratorium, is there any reason why them 2 counties wouldn't do the moratorium?
Not sure I understand your question. If we're in between 2 counties that have a moratorium, if I understand your...
Right. Would there be any reason we wouldn't want to join the moratorium? I mean, we can take it just between McPherson, Spink, and Edmonds, or we can go clear down the other side of the state. Do all these counties have moratoriums on? I mean, I don't know how many counties this crosses, but I'm sure it's a number of counties.
I believe Mr. Fishbeck has an
I can answer that.
Okay?
Moody County, Hyde County have moratoriums. McPherson has a moratorium plus an ordinance that they did clear back in January. And to respond to your state's attorney's points, there's been no challenge on what they've done to this point in court. So, I mean, I think they're fairly confident what they did was right. Spink has not adopted the moratorium yet. They'll have it on their agenda next week, because they only meet, twice a month instead of weekly. I talked to my commissioner, Suzanne Smith, the chairman. She's assured me that as far as last week, that they had every intention of doing that, the moratorium. What's been holding them up is they have an attorney hired to basically write the correct language for them that they want, so that's what's holding them up, unless something changes. But I've been giving the assurance by her that they're going to take that up next week. They do not have an ordinance in place. I guess I would respond to what Mr. Thompson's saying is that if you're concerned about what kind of authority that you may have on your ordinance and that, if that's the issue and you need more time, that's all the more reason to have the moratorium in place for a year, and that will give you time for the courts to work this out. And you're not going to risk anything by putting a moratorium on. You're not putting yourself in legal jeopardy. All you're doing is protecting the citizens of your county and slowing the process down. And since the PUC has given someone an unlimited amount of time to come up with an established route, I would think that's just common sense to put the moratorium in place. And I understand, I'll tell you something else, and I don't know, maybe you commissioners are, and I think what's going on here is we have and I've been told this by several counties, and even my own state's attorney, and he happens to be a distant relative of mine. These state's attorneys and the county commissioners, at least in Spink County, and I know in other counties because I've talked to them, are getting extreme pressure from Summit and their lobbyists. They're getting letters, they're getting emails, and they're getting extreme pressure, and they're going to the state's attorneys to try to scare you all from taking any action and threatening a lawsuit. And I guess I would just give you this comment. As a commissioner, I would wonder if already all you're doing is thinking about a way to protect the citizens of your county, is the first response out of this out-of-state, private, foreign company is that you might get sued. We might sue you. Wouldn't that give you pause that that's a company that you may not want to have in this community doing business in the future? Because if that's all they want to talk about is suing somebody, when all you're doing is trying to do the right thing for your citizens, that would give me a lot of pause and want to do business with them. Like I told you, what landowners are going through. Suzanne Smith told me herself, and I can show you the text messages that she's been sending me, our county commission chairman in Spain County. She's tired of it. She's tired of the pressure. And I'll bet you folks are too. And frankly, as a landowner representing the landowner easement team on this issue, I wish we didn't have to be here before you. But like Jared said earlier, we were forced to come to you commissioners, because I think you all heard it. One of the commissioners at the PUC hearing, the final comment was made, how do your county commissions feel? That's who we're going to look to. The positions they take is going to determine how we rule on this permit. That's what Gary Hansen said. He said it at the Sioux Falls meeting, and he repeated it again at the Aberdeen meeting. That forced us to come to the counties to take some action. Otherwise, I regret that you even have to be in this position. I wish you weren't. That's all we're asking. Please protect us. And I want to just stress one more point as far as the promises you're being made about the income. Jarrett touched on that. One of the Sully County commissioners actually did. He got his statistics from the State Department of Revenue. They were promising Sully County $746,000 a year in property taxes. Department of Revenue figured up it was only $50,000. And I talked to another county commissioner that called me from Lake County. His name is Aaron Johnson. I don't know if you know him. He said he tried the same thing to get the same figure from Lake County from the Department of Revenue. Somebody has gotten to them now too and is pressuring them not to even give you the exact figures, because he said the person down there told him, I've been told we're not supposed to release that anymore, but all I will tell you is that Summit's figures are completely way too high. And so and I'll tell you what else, I said it in Spink County when Summit's people appeared and promised, Spink County is supposed to get the most out of this thing because we have the most land affected. They're promising Spink County $1,717,000 a year in property taxes. You know what I told our commissioners? Ask them to put that in writing today. Sign a contract with you, and you guys could do the same thing. Put it in writing, and then you can budget for that. And you know what they did? They backed off. We can't do that. That happened in Iowa. County Commission confronted them, and they said, no, these are just estimates. So be very wary. And Ernst & Young that did that report, in case you haven't seen it, I can show you it. The New York Times did an expose. They just got fined $100 million by the Securities Administration for fraudulent accounting practices. Take a pause. Their figures that they did for Summit, they weren't independent figures. They were spoon-fed the information by Summit. So they came up with what they wanted to hear. So just keep all that in mind. It all goes back to the transparency and the honesty of this company. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
There is a Todd Kay. He is a lawyer over in Watertown, and he writes ordinance for Lake, Minor, Kingsbury, Coddington, Hamlin, and Clark, which crosses, this pipeline crosses. He does it for 11, and I've got his phone number. I've talked to him several times. He's advising those counties to do nothing. And I was followed around that when I talked to a couple of these other county commissioners, and there's a gentleman sitting in this room that will tell you that Summit doesn't want you to do a moratorium, and they don't want you to do an ordinance. Brookings County, you can talk to a Bob Hill or a Rick Haugen, they're lawyers over there. They have an Article 24, which has a 1,324-foot corridor with a 660-foot setback. The state of Illinois, I called the Chamber of Commerce once, which is their PUC. For pipelines, they have a 500-foot depth. So I don't think your ordinances are going to be challenged where you're going to lose them. I think your ordinance will stand, because it's not exclusionary, not on distance or depth. It's fair.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Ernest.
I will say, I have reviewed several of the moratoriums that are in place in the other counties, and the only thing I'll point out is none of them are consistent or say exactly the same thing. So the only thing I would say is what we're considering here today, there's nothing in front of to review. What's it look like? What's it say? How's it written? What's the language in it? Or it doesn't exist yet. And the counties along the line each have something different with different language in it. I mentioned Moody's County's moratorium is for all pipelines. It says any pipeline. Whether it's any pipeline is any pipeline, whether it's carrying water, CO2, or anything. Details matter, and that's the only thing I was going to say is what we're talking about right now has not been drafted, reviewed. It's just in concept of what Brown County, not other counties, but what Brown County is considering. There's no draft in front of you guys to see exactly what it is you're talking about.
Go ahead.
I hate to be the only one talking, but I could give you a little advice on that. I'll make it real simple for you. It's what we presented. 2 sentences. You could pass a 1-year moratorium, and I'll tell you the reason I'm going to tell you this, because our commissioners are concerned about restricting other pipelines in the county. I mean, I served on the Webb Water Board as chairman for several years. I know what pipelines, they have a benefit, certain ones that serve a public use. So we don't want to restrict in our county the use of a rural water system. We don't want to, there's a concern that they don't want to restrict natural gas type things like that. So this is what we're recommending. A 1-year moratorium on the permitting and construction of pipelines that transport a stream of gas, liquid, or supercritical fluids comprised of 30% or more of carbon dioxide within or through the county. That's it. That's pretty specific. That only limits it to that, and you're not affecting. It doesn't mention anything about oil or gas, natural gas, or anything. You're not restricting rural water systems for expanding anything. It's that simple, and I think that's real similar to something that McPherson County has adopted. I haven't seen theirs in its entirety, but I know that that was part of it. So, I mean, I could help you out there. Very simple.
Dennis?
I would just comment that, there's concern about the 1,500-foot setback. And if for no other reason that we would put a moratorium on, it would give the county a year to actually let the determination of whether or not the federal, where is the federal government as far as regulating this thing? And how much authority does the counties actually have? And so I would encourage the moratorium, if for no other reason, to give the county a year's time to maybe look at the setback, if nothing else. And I think, there's been all kinds of concern by the public, and I think we have an obligation as elected officials to respond to that request. And so with that, that's my feeling on it.
And I'll just say
Go
one
ahead,
more
sir.
thing, and I don't want to offend you, but if your state's attorney is afraid that you're going to get sued, if this thing goes in the ground, 4 feet in the ground, which Summit is proposing, and there is an accident, you can bet that the public is going to come back and sue you big time. And it's going to cost you more than the lawsuit will be with Summit challenging your ordinances or your moratorium. I don't want to offend you, but I've been thinking about this, and people are going to get upset when people die, and people will die if there is a leak. Anything you built, man-made, sooner or later will fail. I don't care what all the safety things you have on. Sooner or later, that pipeline will fail. And they can't get it shut off with that kind of pressure quick enough. I drove down to east of Millette, where it crosses the Jim River, because I had a landowner. It's going to cross her land. She's an older lady. She said, "Should I sign that easement?" I said, "Don't do anything." If I was driving, I drove bus, and I taught 6th grade for 28 years in Redfield. And I was thinking, when I drove down across that Jim River, here I have a busload of kids. This thing breaks right there. It leaks. My bus is going to stop running. Every one of those children, plus myself, are going to be dead on that bus. With a 20-inch line at 2,138 PSI. I don't see how you get it shut off, and I'm not an engineer. I know what happens if you have a leak in a garden hose and you shut the end off, that leaks get way bigger before you can get to the tap and shut the main off.
What's our liability as landowner? You know, we get paid for this pipeline and there's a leak, and the neighbors, they could come and sue us, because we signed off on it, right?
And
I mean,
most insurances won't go for this, like
Exactly.
your liability insurance, you gotta pick up to the Caesar, so.
Right, and so there's their cattle, their livestock, their families, their pets. I mean, and this company, what's the long-term maintenance and care of this? It's gonna, 4 feet, that doesn't take long for erosion and stuff to come towards the surface. What's gonna happen?
And who's
I mean,
to
many
say
of
they're
these-
not gonna sell it to some other company?
Exactly, and these farms have been in families for years and being passed on, so there's plans for this land to maintain it, and the value is just plummeted, and the liability and the risk that's out there, is it worth it? It's safety, it's in our neighborhoods.
Yes.
Another comment, I mean, really, fear of a lawsuit, really? I mean, who are we protecting? That's, if it comes to a lawsuit, great, let's get it settled. And I think to me, there's obviously enough, evidence out there that, I mean, sue.
Go ahead,
That's all you
sir.
hear.
The thing about a moratorium, it's not a complete and total ban forever on pipelines. If you went to any of these meetings, which many people here have went to a lot of them, I've seen Dennis at them and everything else, it's always a different spokesperson, and the only thing they tell you is that we're gonna create so many jobs and give you so much tax base. There's no other information. You ask questions about what happens if it leaks, how far will it go? Well, we don't know, we'd have to model that. They talk around all these questions. At least if you put a moratorium on for a year, that's your leverage to make them step up and answer these questions that everybody has. And that moratorium can be removed in 2 months, 3 months, 12 months, doesn't matter. But at least you've got some leverage on them to get them to answer some of these questions we've all had, because they just will not.
Okay. Any other comments? Anyone else? Okay. Well, we're faced with the decision today of whether we want to pursue drafting a moratorium, and so that we have something to actually review and potentially vote up or vote down. So we need to decide if we want to instruct or ask our state's attorney to research and draft a moratorium for our consideration.
Well, I guess my suggestion would be that we could go pretty much right off of what McPherson County has done, or we could use the language that Mr. Fishback presented to us, and, I mean, a simple draft, and go with that. And I don't think that there would be any, concern as far as just to get a moratorium in place for a year, to put a hold and give the county the opportunity to go back and look at what we've got in place. I don't think the 8-foot depth is the problem. For me, it's the setback, and it's the opportunity for the county to just hold everything in place for a year, let the PUC know that the county is watching this whole entire thing, that we're in tune with what the public is requesting. And so with that, I'm gonna make a motion that we put a moratorium in place, and that we use the wordage that Mr. Fishback read, and we'll have a 1-year moratorium in place with that wordage.
Okay, we have a motion to put a 1-year moratorium in place based on the language that we've been provided. We don't currently have a document that we can approve.
The remaining portion is what I just read, if you want to read it back.
Let me ask, well, we have a motion on the floor.
Okay, a 1-year moratorium on the permitting and construction of pipelines to transport a stream of gas, liquid, or supercritical fluids compressed 13% or more of carbon dioxide within or through the county. So, I mean, it doesn't go after water lines, natural gas lines. public utilities. To me, it can be very, very simple.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Could I make a small amendment to that motion?
I could get that
Go ahead.
Upon approval of our state's attorney, that he meets his requirement unless he finds something else. I agree with moratorium, but I think we're leaving ourselves open if we don't have an attorney stamp on it. I mean, if they look at it and the wording is right, we know why. We've done our due diligence by having our state's attorney look at it to kind of, if something does go wrong, we've had our diligence checked. That's the only thing I would do to the amendment, and I think the language, we also have the one I've been reading here for Pearson County, and it states something very similar to what you just read. And I think that's very appropriate, but I would like to make sure that our state's attorney agrees with that language.
I'll second. Can I second his
Well,
amendment?
he's seconding yours with that,
Okay.
with that amendment, so. So we have a motion and a second to basically ask the state's attorney to draft our Brown County moratorium.
Can I further comment?
Go ahead.
I guess, you know, this is gonna be coming, if it passes, it's gonna be coming from the county commissioners. So I'm hoping that we don't get a continual stalling of this action on this moratorium. And so we need action by the state's attorney's office in regards to what the county commission is requesting, hoping that that will take place if this passes.
Okay. Is the state's attorney still out there, Ernest?
Is it a copier?
Oh, okay.
Well, I need to make a couple comments here, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I'm not comfortable with the pipeline for a variety of different reasons, and I've expressed them publicly on numerous occasions, also being a volunteer first responder. I have some huge concerns about safety issues as well as permitting processes going through this. The white paper that state's attorney references several cases that have been litigated over pipelines, that the resolution of these cases clearly puts the responsibility and authority with the federal government when it comes to regulating these things, whether we have a moratorium or we have our ordinances in place. And our ordinances, when we do them, go through a process. I did planning and zoning for 20 years. Commissioner Gage is on planning and zoning right now. The restrictions that we have right now for these pipelines with the 1,500 feet setbacks and the 6-foot depth are in place. They're subject to review at any point in time. And as Mr. Fisk mentioned, and I appreciate you being here today, that it does provide some guidance. Putting a moratorium on is something that doesn't come without some responsibility. Portion of the white paper in here talks about moratoriums. Counties should proceed with caution in passing moratoriums to simply delay the process. Counties are also required to conduct or in good faith intend to conduct studies within a reasonable time for the purpose of considering a comprehensive plan. It's a situation where you have an opportunity to do that. I believe we've considered moratoriums in the past for high line wires and projects and things like that that were outside of what we've considered in the past as well.
In the joint jurisdictional area.
Right, so it's not a new situation that we're in. I'm a little bit concerned because we don't actually have a copy of the moratorium that's being prepared right now. But there's been no chance, no opportunity to review that. Like I said, I have no reservations about opposing the pipeline. I'm not convinced that this is the right way to do it at this point.
Let me ask the state's attorney, would you recommend a process, if you would draft a moratorium based on the input that we've had here today and the recommendation for us to review next week, is there a process you feel we should go through that would be in the best interest of all?
What I recommended and do recommend is we have an ordinance in place. And for the purposes, if the commission decides they want a moratorium, my recommendation is to draft the moratorium in the context of another ordinance. In that ordinance, we would repeal the ordinance that we have in place, putting this ordinance in instead, that is a one-year moratorium, giving us time to study the consistency of a pipeline moratorium with federal law. It does both things. Our ordinance right now, which we have question about, gives us a chance to do further research to make sure that our ultimate final ordinance is consistent with federal law. At the same time, it puts, if the commission wants a moratorium, it puts a moratorium in place, and it's done as an ordinance. It would still be with the one-year timeline under the statute. It could be renewed for another year if needed, and accomplishes the same thing, but allows us to be consistent, and it also gives the commission an opportunity to review the language of exactly what they're voting on and what they're approving. That would be my recommendation, is to do it as an ordinance, following the ordinance procedure, where it repeals the existing ordinance and puts a moratorium ordinance in place, giving us the one-year time frame to work on and draft an ordinance consistent with our comprehensive plan and federal law.
Go ahead, Dennis.
What kind of a moratorium did we put in place when the city gave the responsibility of the 3-mile limit to the county? Did we go through a process of hearings and changes to the moratorium? Because obviously it was a moratorium because we had a time frame when we went from what the city was doing in the 3-mile limit to what the county's responsibilities were. There was a distinct change there. So did we go through this whole process of hearings and all that stuff to put on a moratorium so that we could go into that part of the zoning in the 3-mile limit? I mean,
I don't think that was necessary at the time, Dennis, because we already had our own zoning rules and laws for the whole county, and we just went from having joint jurisdiction to singular jurisdiction, which we already had our ordinances in place. We already had our fees, requirements, permitting process. That was already in place, so there was no need for an additional ordinance in the 3-mile.
but they did more, obviously there was a type of a moratorium. There was a time frame.
We didn't put a moratorium on anything, though.
Scott, what was that process? I mean,
We had to change the ordinance with the verbiage for boundaries.
so there were ordinance changes.
And then our zoning map, we had to change all the zoning, because their agriculture was like A-1 and ours was A-.
So there was a moratorium. There was a time frame.
Well,
It wasn't necessarily a moratorium, it was a transition.
Well, we've got an ordinance in place, and all we're asking with the moratorium is time, a year, and the opportunity, and there's drafts. We've got a draft, we've got McPherson counties. I mean...
Well, if we're gonna do a moratorium, I'm not so sure we wanna start the clock on it right away. Number one. Number two, the ordinance that we did adopt went through the planning and zoning department, through their review, and I'm not trying to pass the buck, because I'm not afraid to make a decision. But I'm not prepared to make this decision today with the information that we have. If we're gonna do anything, I think we should have the information that's recommended go through the planning and zoning process, not to delay things, but to actually give them as much review as possible, because if a moratorium is adopted, it does put responsibility on planning and zoning in the county to review what we're going to put in place when that moratorium expires, whether it's 1 year or 2 years down the road. It doesn't just sit there and nothing happens. It does continue to put the responsibility, and the planning zoning department and board made a recommendation to us, which we adopted after considering as much information as they had available at the time. And if we're gonna change that or circumvent that, I think we need to be at least cautious about it. This doesn't say we can't or won't put a moratorium on it, but with the information we have today, I'm not comfortable making that decision here today with what we have. That's all I'm saying, because I'm not in favor of this thing.
Well, one more comment.
Well, just listening to the attorney talk, it kinda sounds to me like he's already been talking to Summit, to where he thinks we wanna get rid of the other ordinance already. That's the last damn thing we want, is to get rid of that. This is just an extension to figure these things out, like Mike said, so you guys can get some of the questions answered. I can hardly believe this is as big a damn thing as he makes it out to be. The languages here and all these, it's not, it ain't like that. Everyone just spins circles around, passes it, now we're gonna go back to planning and zoning, oh, then we'll have another county commission thing. So we're just supposed to be at every damn meeting 3 times a week from here on out, the way it looks. And nothing goes on.
The idea of a moratorium is to give the county and your planning and zoning time to evaluate your ordinance. You don't wanna get rid of that ordinance, you wanna rewrite it better, if necessary. But if you rescind it with this moratorium, that ordinance is gone. You just need a moratorium to look at what you're doing. That's all that points out, is that moratorium gives you time to look at your ordinance, to rewrite it the way you want it.
All right.
We're saying the same thing.
No, you're not.
No. It's reviewing it.
Let's keep it civil here.
It's reviewing it and what I'm recommending is a process and a deliberate step to where we know what we're doing when we're doing it. And all it is a recommended process of evaluating, accomplishing the same thing, of studying the ultimate ordinance that we end up with, making sure it's consistent with federal law and our comprehensive plan. And no, I believe I have received one letter, the same letter that the county commission received from Summit Carbon. I have not personally talked to anybody from Summit Carbon, nor have I received an email from Summit Carbon. I am just recommending a process to where we move with a sense of deliberate purpose and not reactionary approving something before it's drafted.
Commissioner Weeks. I just wanted to reiterate what the state's attorney, I have not had any private conversations or communications with anybody from Summit, and I absolutely will not allow any private conversation between myself and anyone from that company. I'm making my decisions and making my observations based on what I think is best for the community, and I'm going to reiterate it again, I am not in favor of this pipeline. So it's not because I don't want us to be super cautious about it. I'm not in favor of the pipeline in any way, shape, or form. As I said, I'm a volunteer first responder. I have huge concerns about safety issues with this project. I just want us to be very cautious about the position that we put ourselves in and the leverage that we can try and maintain as best as possible.
But I believe the amendment to the motion that Dennis made was the fact that the state's attorney draws it, and the commission then gives the approval upon seeing what's actually drafted. I don't think we're actually approving the moratorium today, we're approving the fact that the state's attorney, to draft it, and then upon that draft as a commission, we would then see it as what we're basically accomplishing.
Go ahead, Dennis.
First of all, I think we all know what the state's attorney's gonna draft, because he already told us that. My question, I guess, would be, can the county commission do an emergency based on county commission code? Can the county commission put on an emergency moratorium? Do you know, Scott, is there anything in that would align with that?
There is a section in there, in the planning and zoning section, 11-10-11, somewhere in there.
That would actually give the county commission authority to do an emergency.
I'd have to read the verbiage, whether it's, when it says the board, it means the county commission. When it says the commission, it means planning commission. So I'd have to read the verbiage on exactly how that's worded by the state, for the state statute.
Dennis?
I guess, a question for Mike. So are you afraid of a lawsuit? Is that the problem? I mean,
No.
why?
No, I'm not.
Well, then why are we why are we waiting? What's the holdup? Why are we?
I mean, I'm not afraid of a lawsuit, I'm...
Well, obviously, there's something, I mean, you haven't really explained what the argument is as to why we need to put it off for another week or another month, or stall it, and putting a
You don't
moratorium
even
on.
have a copy of the ordinance.
We've got all
itself, right?
kinds of wordage that can be put together.
I don't have it sitting in front of me, and I haven't had a chance to review it.
Well-
And that's part of the responsibility of these positions,
Did you hear it?
is to do that.
Did you read McPherson County's?
Can I just make one more comment?
Go ahead.
All the while, just keep in mind, Commissioners, all the while that you're getting your facts together and stalling, as I told you earlier, someone is out there sending letters to landowners, and they're out there trying to survey against their wishes right now. And that includes boring on property, backhoeing, things like that. We have an injunction filed in McPherson County, but I'm just telling you, our attorney has been instructed that if any more delays take place, we're gonna have to start filing injunctions in every county to help protect our landowners if we can't get our elected officials to do the same thing. And we're prepared to do that. I wish we didn't have to, but it's really frustrating for us as landowners. We're a coalition of grassroots people. There's no secret big dark money behind us. We're all doing this on our own time and our own expense. They've got millions and millions of dark money behind this company. And I can go through that, some of this. And one of them is $110 million from South Korean investors. Can you believe that, folks, that are gonna take advantage of this 45Q tax credit? As a taxpayer, doesn't that make you outraged that a foreign people are gonna take advantage of our tax credit that most of us can't do? I mean, that's just one investor that we know of. So I'm just imploring you to take the action now to protect us landowners. This moratorium is proper, and I think what you've done with the amendment and that, I think this is a stalling tactic. And to be frankly with you, we're hearing this from other counties that I'm getting reports from their state's attorneys. So somewhere there's a coordinated effort being done, and I don't know if it's
I
somewhere.
take offense to that.
I'm not
Right here
saying
and
you-
right now, I take offense to that, because that is not any way, shape, or form my motive or my position on
I'm not
this.
saying it is, Commissioner Mike.
Well,
I'm not.
I take the inference that you are.
No, I'm just saying there is a coordinated effort being done all over this area, because I've heard from other county commissioners that that's what's being done, that they're getting the kind of the same talking points from their state's attorneys. That's all I'm saying. I'm not blaming anybody.
I think the only talking point we're hearing from our state's attorney is, number one, I share the concerns that everyone else in the room has already voiced. I'm not for the pipeline. I have the same concerns over safety and land values, and I agree with all of that. But I'm not prepared to vote on something today that I don't have in front of me, and we all know what the intent of that moratorium may be, and what the intent of the verbiage may be, but until I see a copy of it, I don't see what's wrong with waiting another week until we have something drafted that we can actually vote on, because I don't feel comfortable voting on something and passing something that I haven't seen. A lot can change in verbiage and language. Go ahead.
And one other point I wanted to make clear, I made a recommendation of what I thought. If you guys decide, as this body, the governing body decides they want to go a different direction and don't want to do it as an ordinance, I'll draft it as a resolution. So when it was mentioned that we know what the state's attorney's going to draft, that's not true. If you say you want it as a resolution, I'll draft a resolution for you. And I'll send it out, and you have a chance to observe it, and it'll be in front of you, and read it, and ask questions of it. If you want it done as an ordinance, I'll do it that way. I've made my recommendation, but if you decide you want to do it a different way, I'm fine with that. But I'll draft it, I'll put the language in, I'll send out drafts, you guys can review it, you can ask questions, we can edit it, and then when you vote on it, you know what you're approving.
So if we have that drafted by next Tuesday, we would have a resolution in support of a one-year moratorium. When would that go into effect, Kathy? Upon
A
approval?
resolution?
Yes,
I believe so.
upon approval of
I
of
would
the
like
commission.
to confirm with state statute on it, if a resolution can be referred or not, but I believe it would be just like a motion will be
Okay.
effective immediately.
I just wanted to verify when it would go into.
I will clarify, like, the county's typical process to adopt anything, I'm talking the fireworks permit on the agenda, the lottery permit, any item on the agenda, is to have the documents prepared and completed by 3 o'clock on Friday, so not only the commissioners, but the general public can review the document in its entirety as it is to be adopted on Tuesday before the meeting, and we're missing that piece of the puzzle here. Now, I don't have a dog in this fight on the pipeline, but we should be following our normal procedural process, and that's where the transparency comes in. I have not even seen the moratorium to put in the minutes that I'm typing up right now. So by waiting a week, having it drafted, having transparency, y'all can get a copy in advance, read it, that's the procedure we should follow.
And the amended motion covers that.
It does. Yes, it would give us time to have that
And I think if we have to
transparency.
vote next Tuesday, I don't think there's a need for 40 people to show up, because I think most of you realize where the commission sits. But I still believe that following procedure is what we have to do, so I think that's where we're at. And I think that's all that needs to be said at this point.
And that's my issue, but I do have a, go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
There's a process by statute that it has to be published 10 days before the meeting.
An ordinance or a resolution?
It was the emergency part of the moratorium.
That would be the ordinance parts and zoning.
If we did it as an ordinance, you are correct. If we do it as a resolution,
We could put it on next Tuesday's agenda.
And we'll have public copies available at least 24 hours out.
Go ahead, Mike.
I have a question for Mr. Fishback. In your opinion, what advantage does putting a moratorium on give us over and above having the most restrictive ordinances in place already for this type of a pipeline? What does it gain?
Well, I would say the moratorium, like I said earlier, gives you time, if you're concerned about the ordinance and the legality of it, it gives you time to go back. You've got a whole year to review it, make any adjustments to it. Like, I understand you've got a 6-foot depth in your deal. I think that's an excellent thing you've done. 1,500 foot, to be honest with you, I wish it was further, but it's better than nothing. So I think you could look at that, because, folks, I agree with you. I just told you, my son is doing the job that you're doing right now for the city here. I wish this thing shouldn't be any more than a mile within a school or a hospital, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm inclined to agree, but
I know-
putting the moratorium on doesn't change the fact that we have the
No.
ability to review that now
No.
and make adjustments to it. What does it do that we don't have the ability to do now, is
Well,
my
I think it
question.
sends a signal, for one thing, to your constituents and to Summit to slow down the process. It also would help us as landowners, so we don't have to keep spending money on legal fees and court costs, which we don't want to do.
Does,
But I-
what, us putting the moratorium on will allow you to stop having to have this fight?
I'm not saying it will, but I said it, without
What does
doing
it
anything,
actually do, is my question.
buys us some time, number one. Buys everybody time. The PUC has given them, like I said, an unlimited amount of time to come up with a route. They don't even have a route. And we're going out doing these surveys using a clause in the eminent domain law to get on people's property right now, and they don't even have a permit.
And I'm frustrated and not
I know,
happy about
that's
that. We've
bizarre.
had plenty of conversations
Yeah,
about
no
that.
kidding.
But I'm not sure that putting a moratorium on at this point puts any advantage, because I think the signal's clear. I don't think there's been any ambiguity in the position of myself or any of the rest of the people on this commission about where we stand on this project. I don't think the message is unclear at all. And I'm, and if-
More of a message into the PUC, just like they told us at that meeting. We're here working with you guys, that's what they told us to do.
Okay,
You know, and-
we have a gentleman here who's had his
I
hand up.
appreciate your previous positions, I'm not questioning that, I mean, I applaud you for it.
okay.
Go ahead,
And I
sir.
think that's clear.
My comment, just 2 comments. The moratorium is gonna give you leverage to get answers from them that they're just not giving. And second of all, the comment about not having a dog in the fight, I've heard that from a lot of people. People said it doesn't concern me. Well, if this
Well, I
pipeline-
was just meaning, like, as auditor, I'm not a voting member of this board, so
I
I'm just
understand, but there's a
procedural
lot of
only
people
right
out in the
here.
country that think they don't have a dog in this fight because it's not close to them. This route has changed almost daily. They don't have a set route. And anybody who has a kid that goes to a school that passes by within a half mile should have a dog in this fight.
They're not gonna have
Anybody
a
that
set
lives
route
in
until
the
they
city,
get their.
city limits where it may go by.
Right, the
That's
community
done.
doesn't even know that this is in their neighborhood. That's the
Yep,
concern here.
we've heard all those comments this morning. So we have a motion at the table to have the state's attorney draft a document. We just need to instruct the state's attorney whether we want that to be an ordinance or a resolution. Come back next Tuesday with a document on the agenda to act on. Is there any further discussion on the motion and the second that we have? Go ahead, Mike.
Well, if we're gonna do it on that timeline, it has to be a resolution.
Exactly.
Is there any advantage, in your opinion, resolution or ordinance?
I made my recommendation, I preferred the ordinance process.
So we've
But
been,
all I want is a process.
we've been advised by legal counsel to make it an ordinance. We're considering making it a resolution.
The only difference is the time frame for the
Exactly.
advertising.
So if it's a resolution, we can act on it next Tuesday. Go ahead.
Is one gonna have more teeth than the other, or the?
About the same.
Any further discussion? We understand what we're voting on today. Go ahead, Dennis.
Okay, is it a resolution then, or is it an ordinance change?
Well, I think we need to clarify that in the motion, okay, it'll be in the form of resolution.
It's the only way we can get it on next Tuesday's agenda,
That was my point.
in the form of a resolution. We understand that what we're voting on, authorizing or directing the state's attorney to draft a resolution regarding a moratorium on the pipeline, the CO2 pipeline. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Take action on it, I wanna see it.
The other comment would be is that, you know, being that we sit here and you've got the thing that would probably be of greater value is if every county could get on the board and do a moratorium from the southeast corner of the state to the other end of the state. It'd be much more conforming if everybody was on the same ship instead of, well, this county does and this county does. I'd really like to see a push to have all these counties be on this line of thinking.
There is a commissioner in Minnehaha that's gonna bring that up at your general meeting of all the commissioners. And I just don't know how you get all the commissioners to agree to do something. I'll tell you.
You don't.
I've talked to the Department of Resources, I've tried to talk to our governor. Nobody is stepping up to the plate. Department of Resources, they have all kinds of regulations on oil wells, water wells, feedlots, nothing on pipelines.
Just one quick comment. The gentleman mentioned, the planning and zoning individual from Cottington County represents District 1. He made the comment at a county commissioners district meeting that this pipeline, this CO2 pipeline, he likened it to the railroad. Think about that.
All right, we have taken action on the moratorium today. Thank you, everyone, for your input, your time. We will act on it next week based on the verbiage. Thank you, everyone. Just a reminder, if anyone's cell phone goes off in commission chambers, there's a $5 fee that goes to the SCACP Scholarship Fund, right over there in that tin can.
I thought it was your
Goes to the Scholarship Fund.
Goes to the Dirk Jones Fund,
So, how'd you get to call that you had to be incognito today?
I have no idea.
Sorry to make you wait.
All right, next item on the agenda, Richmond Lake Road.
I don't believe that for a minute.
Mr. Bellico, will you be leading the charge here today?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right.
Welcome to sit here.
Everybody in here.
Welcome to sit up here. Here? Yeah, please do.
Now, after what we've been through, you're gonna go easy on us, right?
No, don't bother. What would anybody want?
Start campaigning against yourself.
only have one time to withdraw. It's educational.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending. Mr. Neil Bellica will be the spokesperson, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm a spokesperson, and part we want to discuss today with the county commission. There's a bunch of the neighbors that live on this road, we use this road. We're talking about basically 3/4 of a mile that we'd like to have paved. That runs from the park, boat ramp, to the corner of West Ridge Road.
To the west.
Just to the west. And that portion of highway we've been dealing with has been in terrible condition. It's washboardy 3 days after it's bladed. It's got soft spots in it. Some of them have been repaired, some have not. We have a dust problem there. We have no guardrails. We have steep side slopes. And we have a petition that all the neighbors have signed in that area, not all of them, but pretty much all of them. We'd like to ask that we could get that area paved just for that 3/4 of a mile for now, because that gets not just our traffic, but it gets all the traffic going to the west over to Northern Border Pipe, or not Northern Border Pipeline, but the gas pipeline. We've got people drive that every day. There's a lot of farmers that drive that road, and it's getting to the point that it gets so dusty when there's no wind, you literally cannot see anything. And I'm just wondering, why are we waiting? Do we have to wait till somebody gets killed on this road before we do something about it? For 3/4 of a mile of asphalt? And if you look at the asphalt that's been out there, I bet most of it's over 20 years old. And if you divide the cost of that 3/4 of a mile over 20 years, it doesn't amount to too much. And our taxes are high out there, and we just don't feel like we're getting a good representation for our tax money.
All right, go ahead, sir.
That stretch, just as a reminder, that stretch of road was paved, and it reverted back after we had all that flooding in, what was it, 08, 09, somewhere in there, was one of the roads that got ground up. What Neil said about the steepness of that road, it's not even just the steepness, but it's narrow. I don't think that road, you cannot count the outer 2 feet of that road because it's this. If you get your wheels on that very outer edge, and I'm telling you, well, especially when you pass farm equipment, you can't see anything. It's as hilly as it gets for Brown County, right on that road, on that piece of that road. And those drop-offs are unforgiving. And I know when my kids were learning to drive and driving to high school, that terrified me in the winter. And my daughter went off that road in the winter. Luckily, it was not where it was real steep, because that would have been horrible. So just asking to get it back the way it was. I know everybody wants everything from you guys, and there's only so much money, but that piece of road is very dangerous. I mean, most roads are flat as can be in the county, right? It wouldn't be as big a deal, but not that piece of the road.
Any other comments?
I do.
Go ahead.
There's some inequity when you compare Richmond Lake to the other communities. Our tax base is large, probably next to Groton, but our facilities on West Half is next to none. And 378 needs to be paved, because that's really dangerous, and a person died there, wasn't found for, 3-4 months, going off the edge. Nobody knows what happened, but steep, and once you go off, you're gone. But the North Shore has got a beautiful paved road. The west side is horrible. And I like to bike, and a lot of people like to do the 9 miles. But you don't want to go down 378, and you don't want to go down the tore-up section, which was so bad that it tore the entire oil pan out of our old HHR car in the spring, right down the middle. It just heaved up so terrible. And when they built the road, they didn't protect it with clay, keep it from heaving, and it heaves mightily.
I mean, when you're swerving back and forth to get around the heaves, and that doesn't go away, we keep getting that, we had it last year again, or this spring. But, if you take a drive and look how well it's progressed, out there, we're hurting a good community. Minus got roads all around, and here we are, Big Brown County, and we don't have, it's hillbilly. And on West Bridge Road, right past the bridge, that third of a mile, they grade it once in the spring and grade it once in the fall. They take all the organics and pile it on the road and flatten it out. So each year, it's getting more and more organics, black soil. I've been there 14 years, there's been about 150 feet of gravel laid on the hill, period. So that's what we get from the township. Whereas they built, with the county's permission, a mile north of West Bridge, it's been 5-6 years ago, they put in 3 10-foot culverts on an abandoned section line. Okay, that's county money, that's county road, abandoned section line, no maintenance. Done for the convenience of one particular township board leader at the time. And one more point, and this one really got me this spring from me. We paved a beautiful stretch over North Bridge Road, over North Bridge, up to West Bridge. And then you turn right and went on County 5 North, which was torn to pieces. It was degraded like our section. And you paved off the horizon almost a half a mile of beautiful, thick asphalt to nowhere. There's not one house on that County Road North, not one. But that gets a nice stretch with almost, well, as narrow as our road is. It would have done the stretch we're talking about. And you wasted all that asphalt to nowhere. So, not your fault, gentlemen, but we get a certain vibration that we're redheaded stepchildren out there. That we're the forgotten, and all we've always gotten is excuses. Our bridge, that was in terrible condition, got put off for 4 years. Every year, they found something more important than that main thoroughfare bridge. Again, no valid reason other than we're gonna take care of this little stretch up here backside of Frederick. And over by Hecla in the back roads that goes to 1 or 2 farms. Let's count the number of people out there before you say no to this decision. And I recommend highly that you pave that thing all the way around so we have a decent certain route around that lake and treat it like it's a valued possession to this county, and it adds to this county and more than just people drive that road because they want to go to Richmond Lake. The road service out there says we don't want you out here, and that's not right. That's it. That's too wordy, but
Okay. Okay.
if you got a good reason, say no.
Okay. Dirk, anything to add?
Well, I can explain the reference he's making to where we concluded on the top with the microsurfacing the other day, or last year. First off, that process wouldn't have been done on any other roads out there, because, with the exception of maybe North Shore would be one
That's had that forever.
because it's similar to, the makeup of them are similar. Specific to where we stopped on that, that's also where we stopped with the project in 2001 when Road 6 was originally built, you know, and it got all rebuilt up and stuff, and that's where that project ended. And that's also the same spot when the road north of there went to hell, and so that was a logical spot to begin the gravel road.
But you admit it looks funny as hell.
Well, yeah, but there's all kinds of places where the asphalt ends and the, you know, gravel road starts. So that's why I went there. That process that we did out there a couple of years ago, like I said, there's only a couple roads, mostly North Shore Drive and Spillway where you'd have done that. Maybe South Shore too. But those aren't interchangeable processes.
Well,
Now,
I understand, I'm just.
But
wondering-
yes, that the money that was used there that you think should be redirected somewhere else, that's a valid argument, but that's just an explanation on why it was done that way.
You did a great job on West Shore with the chip.
Yep.
They had severe washboarding, they had dust, people had putting their own oil out just to keep from choking.
Yep.
And we were thinking, well, maybe he'll finish the job, because we got a bunch of people still.
Yep.
And, why not?
Go ahead, Mike.
Can you bring us up to date on the guardrail project?
Boy, I'm struggling, it's happening, it's slow, there's some retrofitting things, making what.
Standard continues to change
Right,
the size.
so trying to get that, but that's all in the process, and I would assume that's gonna get let here, hopefully before fall, you know?
It's
Not
on the
looking.
schedule to be replaced next.
2023, according to
Next
the
year.
DOT, I was at the meeting.
Okay.
And then
State
their meeting, the STIP meeting, it says it's, 2023, the guardrails are supposed to be done. And I realize there's some formalities as far as the grants and
Yeah.
federal government be involved and all the things, that's why it's probably delayed, but it is on their agenda for 2023 in the guardrail.
Yeah, and that, just so you know, that's gonna complicate the snow removal a little bit. I mean, it's, the feeling I get from the people that live in that neck of the woods, their snow removal sucks anyway, so, but that particular it's gonna complicate it a little bit more, but,
And not that it makes it any better, but we've also been working on for several years the crossing at the intersection that goes to the landfill
yep.
from the state highway, just as an example. And how many years did it take us to get the bridge that goes to Richmond Road in there?
Quite a while.
To do that?
Right.
You know, just an example of how long some of these things take, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, folks from Frederick and Heckler wanna know why the hell we're putting so much money into things around the lake, because they're not getting any attention, so.
We've all
There's
had,
a reason.
we all got emails this week that the weeds aren't mowed north of Highway 10. So, you know, I mean, everybody's got a problem.
Oh, I agree.
And the problem really comes down to funding. I mean, there's just absolutely no question about it. In Brown County, about 60% of the property tax all you people pay, and, I mean, it is probably too much taxes you're paying, goes to the school district. And when it's all said and done, you look at the, you know, your sanitary sewer district, the drainage, James Water Development District, any other township, all those things, and when it's all said and done, the county ends up with about 22% of the property taxes you pay. So, and then we gotta figure out how to pay for a new jail, and how we have to pay for the sheriff's office, state attorney's office, all those things. And when it's said and done, when we're short in the highway department, we steal money from the landfill. So, you know, we're trying to do, the highway department's trying to cover a lot of miles with a pretty limited budget, and
I think what we're asking is for a more equitable distribution of those funds, because you can go to Westport to the county line, all the way across from 281, and there's maybe 2 houses on this paved road.
Well,
And what's at the end of it is some big wheeler dealer ag group guys. So it's the equity, it's perceived or not, we're not getting our fair share.
That specific example, the state paid for that.
Well, I don't mind who pays for it.
Well, no, and I know.
It's still our tax dollars.
But I gotta be honest, that isn't a road I would've put that kind of, or I wouldn't have recommended that we put that kind of investment in it, but the state wanted to use it for a detour, and the minute they wanna use any of our roads for a detour, we let them, because we can get.
Well, you take advantage.
Right, and that's the same reason that Prairiewood got paved last year. That's about $1.2 million we got to use it as a detour for the state. Again, I'd be sitting here trying to balance out those 11 miles and where we would fit them into the program right now if we weren't able to take advantage of where the state helps us out there.
Neil, go ahead.
Detour around Richmond Lake then?
Yeah, if we could come up with one, I'd be happy to.
Go ahead,
The
Neil.
direct route to Elm Lake, but we can work on it.
We have about $10.6 million of just tax assessment, just on our end of the lake, which is larger than 80% of the cities in this county. If you look at Frederick, you look at Claremont, they all got paved roads going to them. and we have 10.6 million just on our end. Richmond Lake itself has over $75 million worth of tax assessment value. So we're just looking at, we just want a fair, equitable, just like he was saying, is we need to be treated fair, to be taken care of out there, because it's a growing area, and our houses are not low tax houses. Everything on Richmond Lake is going through the roof. I think you're aware of that. And the next thing that you got is the fact that, as the more houses move in, we get just that much more traffic, and that road just gets destroyed. It lasts 3 days, and it's all washboard. You can't stay on it. You can't ride a motorcycle on it. Literally cannot stay on the road over 25 miles an hour. It's like riding on marble. So it's an unsafe condition, and I just think that to be treated fairly for us being out there, and I already talked to the tax assessor, everybody's taxes are going up 10% next year across the county, because they're behind the curve, so we're gonna be paying that much more. At least we should be able to get some services out there. I know we're out in the boonies, and you guys don't really care where we're at out there,
That's not a true statement.
but, I mean, that road has been horrible for years, and it was paved, and I agree, it was pretty rough paved before they ground it out, but it was still paved, and it wasn't dusty,
And it was a washboard.
and it was not washboardy.
Another problem, when they treat the road with the grader, he goes too fast. We've been complaining about this for years. He goes too fast, he never ever gets the washboard cut out, because he's in a hurry. So every time, if it rains, immediately he returns to washboard. The winds blow, and a few cars go, it returns, 2-3 days, it is horrific, and it's never ever been treated right. I'm not knocking the guy, he's got plenty of roads to do, but at least once, if you're not gonna do anything else, at least get rid of the washboard on it.
Sir?
I just wanted to, I guess, when we had that special meeting out there, I think it was 2 years ago, that road was paved, and it was questioned why we ground it, where it started, and it was basically said that it was because the state park is there. And I guess to all of us, that's not a good look, that the state park takes precedence over the citizens. You know, you say you care, but it doesn't look like it.
Okay. Go ahead.
The gravel that they have on the road right now is very poor, very poor. I mean, there's very little gravel on it. I live one house off of 378th. They run that grader down there every 3 days, minimum. I've seen them every day. They're emulsifying the gravel out there. It's like baby powder. The first 3 feet on both shoulders is clay. You know, and that just turns to powder. And that's where we're getting the problem, you know, for not seeing. I think that grader is out there way too much. Way too much. And, you know, the price of diesel right now, you know, we could make up a lot of that money where he wouldn't have to grade, and just to have it paved.
Yeah. Other comments?
One last one, when we get together, there's always talk of us doing a charter for Richmond. And each year it gets stronger and stronger. But there's no reason we can't have our own city and keep that portion of taxes to make our roads equal to what kind of community it is.
That is an option.
It is.
Any other comments? Dirk, anything more to add?
Lady.
I'm sorry.
I think what
your
it
hand up.
boils down to is DOT's job is safety, right, on our roads, and we're bringing to you a legitimate safety concern. There are so many deer and animals out there, you cannot stop quickly on that road to avoid getting hit, or you will veer off and roll, right? The bridge is ridiculous. If you lose control on that bridge, you're going straight in the lake. And like you said, with the shoulders and stuff. So regardless of the equity of taxes or how many people live out there, someone is going to die on that road. And we have teenagers going to school in poor weather conditions. We have people that have been out at those campsites drinking and decide to take their trucks and their RVs and whatever and go around. You can't see when you're coming down and it's a dust storm, right? So two people can hit head on and they don't even know that someone else is there. So regardless of what you feel money needs to be distributed as, you need to address the safety concerns.
Okay,
Fully
just
agree
for
with what she
clarification.
just said. That was well put.
Just for clarification, when you sat down, Neil, you stated that you wanted the stretch of 128th from where the blacktop ends over to 378.
That is, yep, that's the worst stretch, yep, by
That's
far.
your priority.
That's our priority.
3/4 of
now.
a mile.
Because if you do that, this is looking down the road, that's county, and that's 50% of the traffic, maybe 70% of the traffic is going into the Richmond area. 30 to 35 is probably farmers and stuff going further west. We're not the only ones using that thing, right, Dennis? Wouldn't you say there's quite a bit of truck traffic and everything? You can't chip seal it because there's too much truck traffic, they'd destroy it. It wouldn't last anything, would it, Dirk?
Tractors.
You chip seal that?
Depends. There you're higher and drier, you might have a chance, but.
But I mean, if we pave that section, then we would look at, we're looking down the road of creating a city of Richmond. We would not be able to take that into it because that is a county runway. Going north, I think you guys wouldn't have any problem giving that stretch up over the bridge.
We'll give you all of it, that's not a problem.
If you guys create the city of Richmond,
Yep.
I would be happy to recommend paving that half mile. If you can get me out of the rest of that, we'll concrete it, son of a bitch, I don't care. And you can go ahead and print that and mark my words. You guys create a city out there, we'll build the best road in the county on that half mile.
Okay.
There's my support for that.
I just wanted to verify, because we've
Make it a township.
Yeah, we're basically, that's what we're asking for. That is the worst stretch we deal with every day, is that 3/4 of a mile.
That's your priority.
That's our priority.
I don't argue that.
Another area with the safety part of it, if you look at the A community that brings their heavy equipment, tractors, and they're coming one way and they're taking pretty much the whole road to get down. And, you know, when you bring your equipment over to hay over there, or you pick up the hay, you can't, if you meet a car there or a piece of equipment, they have to back up, or they have to pull over, because there's no way for that farm equipment to move over, because it'll go over the high embankments there. So it's a hazard, also for the A community.
Well, the thing of it is, when you come out onto, that stretch of road onto 13, all you folks come out on there, I mean, there's issues there, there's no question, because you're accelerating, so right away, you're gonna start creating, washboard, and the material, I mean, that has a lot to do with it too, because if there's no binder, the more that is worked, the more you drive the binder out, the more you drive on it, it dusts everything out, or all the fines go out to the shoulder. I mean, you'd almost have to have a blader on there at least every other day in order to really keep the washboard out of it, and, I mean, that's not economical for the county either. It's not.
But then it happens what he's saying, which
think
I wanna throw in that a former commissioner is the reason that we were blading that so frequently. And despite exactly what, I don't know you, sir, sorry. Shane, exactly what Shane just said, I tried explaining that, and it didn't matter. So, unfortunately with gravel, as you guys know, there's a sweet spot in there, and part of it's the moisture, and part of it's, at some point, it's really hard to have a freshly bladed road that's not dusty. It's hard to do that.
They use, what's your composite you put on, you guys paid for yourself, and you,
Oh, that ground asphalt.
Yeah, there's dust.
ground asphalt, that's beautiful, and not dusty.
No dust.
Yeah.
He's talking about on our stretch.
You guys paid for it yourself, and
Yeah.
who donated it? He did.
Well, he
I had some
He coordinated it, yeah.
ground asphalt and brought it in,
It's
bladed
like-
it out, and made a huge difference.
Yes.
So Dirk, realistically, if we would decide that we did want to pave that, is there a lot of prep work that would need to be done to get that road conducive to a layer
I have no
of
idea.
blacktop? That would
We
be
have to look
research.
at it a little bit. The biggest problem I see with that is the grade of the hills. I mean, somebody referenced the DOT safety stuff. The DOT wouldn't pave that road like it is, because the transitions and the grades are different. Doesn't mean we can't, we're not necessarily bound by that same deal, but,
We still got a paver, right?
yeah. Yeah, we're trying to see which miles we're not gonna pave today to make up for I had to cut 3.5 miles, just so you guys know, and I don't like bitching about the money, I let these guys do that. So last May 31st of 21, which is when we're supposed to have the budget in, the first draft, and that's usually when I take my first stab at what the budget's gonna be for the next year, but I don't really find out how much asphalt's gonna cost until in January. So then I have to go back and take the amount of money that was awarded in the budget and then adjust it to the prices. Up until the last couple of years, that hasn't been too bad, but the last couple of years, it got really bad. And so when we finally got our numbers in, just on it's on that map behind you there, but I had to come up with 4 miles to take out of what we had planned. Luckily, up at Hecla, they bitched about something else I did, so it worked out great. Kicked that can down the road for a couple of years while I tried to address their complaint. And that was easy, because then, okay, you know, there's a few more. So, if you guys are gonna direct me to do this, and you all know, I made it pretty clear I'm not in favor of it, but if you're gonna direct me to do that, then we also gotta recognize or come up with somewhere else that, you gotta squeeze some more out of it. I'm not discounting anything anybody's saying about the taxes. I do wanna point out that when you compare yourself to a city, you're the only location in the county where we have driveways like that. I mean, yeah, we got roads going to Warner, 2 of them, but we don't take care of the streets in Warner. Same thing in Hecla, 2 roads. Hecla's easy though, they're on a state highway. You know, Claremont, same thing. We got 2 county roads going in there, but the city of Claremont takes care of the streets. Just a couple other things since we're here having such a good time. Back in March, I got a quote to do regular maintenance things out on North Shore, Spillway, East Shore, West Shore, everything that got chip sealed 3-4 years ago, whenever that happened. I guess it's probably longer than that now, but so I got a quote from a contractor. That's gonna be happening when we start doing oil stuff. So all the regular maintenance on a few of those things. There's no brand new asphalt for you. And your timing, I was trying to think, because I talked to someone else with similar concerns as you folks. And you got a valid point. I can't remember. I think 2003 maybe I remember paving South Shore. I mean, it's been a while. North Shore, I mean, all that stuff, we haven't gone in there and paved it. And we haven't chip sealed it, and there's a reason for that. We couldn't chip seal North Shore right now if we wanted to set up to do it today. We don't have the equipment to do it because we use semis to chip seal. We can't, it's not gonna work in there, which is why I gotta farm that out. So none of those are good excuses, but I do agree with you that the maintenance is way behind on the asphalt stuff out there. We'll see how much the commission pushes me on your other concerns, and we can talk about them. So that part of it's gonna get done, but I do want you guys to, when you compare yourselves to Warner and you compare yourselves to Hecla and the little towns, our roads go to the town and out of town. We don't take care of any streets or any driveways or anything like that.
But we're only asking for
No, I understand that, but...
But I understand your point, it's a good point, but it's also relevant because we don't take care of our roads now either. We're just as good as a town
Sure.
because we don't have it.
Go ahead, Dennis.
It's not
Well,
exactly minimum maintenance.
And all you folks know that, like, for example, Joby Acres, Richmond Heights, Pleasant Valley, I mean, you can go right down the litany of developments that have the county road, I mean, the roads inside those developments are either through, I think, Prairie would form their own township, but literally back, even before my time, anyway, there was a county commissioner that actually got the Richmond Lake roads, the drive, North Shore, West Shore, all those on the county system, had a house out there. So that's how those roads out at Richmond Lake, the drives and everything, actually got on the county system probably back in the 50s, maybe even the late 40s, I'm not sure. And so, I mean, I support you folks. I think that 4,000 feet should be paved, truly is a county road, there's no question about it. If the folks on North Shore Drive, West Shore Drive, whatever, if they can have the county coming out there chip sealing, paving, doing all those things on their private drives, I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of kudos for that from those folks that live out there. But on the other hand, I think that, you know, I'm in support of you folks having that 4,000 feet paved. So, for whatever that's worth, that's where I'm
When
at.
that commissioner paved the roads, that's what made Richmond Lake kick-started into lots of buildings. All the cabins are gone, except one or two. They're all in the $500,000, million plus, 2 million, a new one. And what it did, that little bit of, I'm a commissioner, pave it, which we always cry about, but that's what got Richmond going.
What's the tax base of Richmond? It's around 75 million.
And I mean, I think you're talking, Neil, about the values going up. When the values go up...
That's what I'm saying, they're gonna go up 10%.
Right. Well, the taxes don't necessarily go up 10%.
Well,
some of them,
they're gonna go up. You
some of
know
them
they're
probably
gonna
gonna
go
go up more and some of them down. I mean, they fluctuate all over the place. There's no question about
Well,
that.
that's a bigger conversation. The whole scheme in Brown County is unique in the fact that it's got roughly 50-50 ag and non-ag. And, you know, for the last 10 years, ag has got it stuck in the eye because of the scheme that we're under for value in ag land, and those couple of years that the international market went crazy for them to finally fall off of the Olympic average. And now with the inflation push on everything, now lakefront property and homes and commercial properties taking the hit with the percentage increases that are coming on right now with that. But, you know, as Dennis said, very little of that gets to the county in the first place. And the greater issue of that, you know, that it was dealt away, I don't know exactly how, over 100 years ago, where counties have primarily property taxes and then some of the other things that we have, and not to divert attention, but the state and the cities have sales taxes, and with very few exceptions, the Class A cities in the state are running 7 to 10% increase on their tax revenue right now because of inflation and the additional revenue that's coming in. And counties were a perfect example of that. Our increase, we're still sitting on 2% from last year? Increase in what we were able to...
Increase over last year? I guess I haven't calculated exactly, but...
Next year, because we collect ours in arrears, we'll get the cap, which is 3%.
Oh, yeah, for
when
pay
inflation's running 8.6, and
Yeah,
that's
for-
a doctored number. But
Yeah,
we're
roughly 1.5% increase.
Yeah, so, you know, the increase in revenue for us makes all of this stuff really difficult. Go ahead.
Basically, what you've got is your revenue kind of very, very slight increase, but all the costs are like that.
Right.
And whereas, you know, sales tax, everybody knows that sales tax is gonna go, revenue for the cities and the state's gonna go up because you add 20% inflation, while the headlines in the paper are gonna be record revenues for municipalities and state, and that there are folks that are gonna be struggling to pay their property tax. I mean, it's obvious, it's all out there.
Well, if we choose to do something, it's not gonna be right away, but Dirk? Dirk, I wouldn't mind seeing numbers, because, you know, the road itself, I'm confident, is not a situation where you can just say, okay, we wanna go out and put 2 2-inch lifts on it and get a 4-inch mat and we're good. There's gonna be a certain amount of prep that would have to happen. And then it begs the question, okay, once you start, where do you quit? Because I recall, Dennis, you and I were around when 6A was done, and we caught plenty of hell over that, because it was a multi-year project, but we actually went in and did the reconstruction. You know, begs the question, if you're gonna spend money, where are you gonna stop, and are you gonna do the project right, and how much are you gonna spend to actually do it if you're gonna make that commitment? You know, do we go put a Band-Aid on it, what's that gonna cost? Or what would it cost to actually do the proper reconstruction? Because you can put a hard surface on it, and it's not gonna change the slopes that you've got falling off of the edges and the rest of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So if we're gonna make that commitment to do something seriously about that, that's gonna foster the growth and address the issues, number one, it's not gonna happen quick. Number two, if we choose to do that, what's it gonna look like, and how much is it gonna cost? And if we make the commitment to do that.
Okay.
So if you can help us with some of that information.
Yep.
Because I'm reluctant to put a 4-inch mat over what's out there without considering doing a serious reconstruction. Because if we'd have put a 2 or 4-inch mat on 6A 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question.
So when and where do we do those kind of things?
I'm not sure the last 4-inch mat we put down anywhere, but I have to think of
Right,
something.
but would there be state money available if you're talking about putting some guardrails in some of those really high parts of that road? Would the state?
The project
Top
that's
of
under
someone?
consideration for doing that, that's in the process, is for the stretch at the bridge going.
No, I know
Yeah.
that, but I'm asking, would that state money qualify, because where you got a 30-foot drop-off on the edge of that road in a couple of spots, is that something the state would cough up money to?
And the first farmer that's out there with a cultivator in spring is gonna tear it all out anyway.
The,
It's just like putting wings on small bridges out in the county.
I can check. I'm not sure if that funding that we're using is specific to bridges, you know what I mean, or bridge transitions and stuff, or if it can be used at any of those locations.
Okay, go ahead now.
One other quick comment, you know, when you go, again, back to West Shore Drive, North Shore Drive, and those drives, literally, it's always irked me for the simple fact that, granted, it probably has drawn development there, building houses and that, but when you pave something that doesn't have a curb and gutter on the top side, anybody that drives those sees what's happening when the water comes down onto that pavement. It's washing under, so the county's spending a lot, and it's only gonna get worse, it's not gonna get better. And as the traffic drives on there, and I mean, and that, you know, that to me is tough to justify spending money, chip sealing, doing all that stuff on those drives out there, and from that thought, you know, what's the difference if you put a 3-inch mat on what's there? Even if there isn't guardrails there, you're not really changing anything other than dust-proofing the thing, making it, you know, I see people, I go through there quite a lot, and I mean, I'm not asking for it to be paved for me, because I can bounce through there, that's not the issue. But I literally see people parked at the top of those hills when it's terrible, terrible dusty, waiting for it doesn't have to be big equipment, it can be simply cars coming through there. They're gonna sit up there and wait until the traffic is completely through, and then they take their trip through there. So, you know, it needs to be paved. I mean, it's just the way it is, but we'll let her go with that.
Go ahead, Dennis, or Mike, I'm sorry.
What are the traffic counts as opposed to other ground roads?
The
Where does
last
that
one
fall?
we did out there, we did right past the park. I'd have to look exactly, like in the last month, it's been since the summer started. Actually, I think it was the weekend before the 4th of July, maybe. But, that was 224, the west side of the park, and the bridge was like 170, 160, something like that. So it's really close to what whoever said, the 2/3 and a third, that's about what it is. That's the last one we did. We'll do another one here before the summer's out. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish your question. So that's about middle of the road. The highest middle of the road we got is about a 540, and that's the last mile, first gravel mile on the south bypass on 14W.
That's wash 42 sometimes.
You said that's a 540?
Yeah, it's like 540. That one's too high. That should probably be paved, but, that's got even more work to do to it to pave it than this road we're talking about.
The mitigation factor on that count is a lot of citizens go the extra 4 or 5 miles around and come back West Shore just to avoid it. So it would be a lot higher count if it was drivable.
Yeah, I drive around the north side on a motorcycle, you can't drive that road.
Go ahead.
If I'm hearing right, and I think Mike, you were alluding to it, that instructing to go ahead and get the prices at least. Yeah, get the prices and figure out what the cost would be on that stretch, and if the commission would be supportive of the push to do that, I think it would be a good start.
Well, we need some good information to work on.
What was the sole purpose of grinding that up in the first place? I mean, that would've been you could've chip sealed that with that on there, and that'd probably been pretty darn good. You know, we were just out there part-time at this time, and we came, it was paved one day, and the next day we come on,
Gone. I was like, what happened
Oh,
there? I mean, I think that would've been a pretty good start to, you know, just doing a chip seal on that, and, that would've been a good.
The answer is, that whole from the Edmonds County line up to the west side of the park was identified way back as something that'd be milled. I'm talking like '02, '03. The origin of that stuff is, the goal starting in 2000 was to get rid of 100 miles of asphalt road, which saves the county $800,000 a year every year so far since then. But the mistake I made is I should have milled the whole thing up at the same time. I milled it over at 13A, and as a couple people have alluded to, and I can't remember your first name, but you brought it up at the meeting out at Richmond, that road was still in decent shape when we milled it up. Well, that's gonna vary, but my point is, it was better than the rest of it, so it got left a little longer. In retrospect, I wish I wouldn't have done that, but,
You'd rather have it ground out.
yeah, I wish I would've ground it up
All
at
the
the
way.
time. Yeah.
It's a perfectly good road that you would have ground out.
No, but it wasn't, we don't grind up perfectly good roads. I mean, I'll take you
You
out
mean
to
from the
woods.
road to the park? You wish you would have grounded it all the way to the park?
Yeah, the first time when we ground the park off to the west, I wish we would've milled all the way from Edmonds County to the park the first time, instead of coming over to 13A and then doing the last 4,000 feet here a couple of years ago. I wish I'd have done the whole thing at the same time, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. I learned a lot of
Left that
mistakes.
stretch, but.
Yeah. Anyway.
You know, and it's still a farm-to-market road, and, you know, the county system is designed, and it morphs a little bit, and this is an example of that, but it's intended to be farm-to-market road to small communities to bridge the gaps between the state highway system. We don't do that very well in Brown County, and quite a few others don't either because of the way things have evolved. County 12 and County 10 are perfect examples of that. They're two of our busiest sections of road that the county is responsible for, and they're both a mile off state highways because they used to be the state highway, and there's simply too much traffic not to do it. Ideally, if you could start with a fresh sheet of paper, you'd have the state highway system, and the county highway system would be halfway between each one of those state roads to accommodate some of those communities, and, you know, they're all over the place because of railroads and a whole variety of different things. But, you know, that's part and parcel to the situation that we have with that.
Well, I can assure you that Dirk isn't picking on you guys. You ground my highway up to in front of my house.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Well, you know, I have
I don't have near as much
I have the same, kind of the same feeling that really, in order to really do it right, the thing needs to be completely reconstructed. I mean, the hill's cut out, the drainage made right, the whole entire thing, but that cost is gonna be so prohibitive that that'll never happen. I mean, with the money that the county's got, that's not gonna happen. What really needs to be done, and I know the county tried, there's a soft spot there right beyond where the railroad grade used to go across, and that can be fixed. I mean, if that was dug out 4, 5, 6 feet and filled with rock and fabric put in there, that could be fixed. The county made an attempt, it didn't solve the problem, there's still a soft spot there. If that was fixed, it could be paved, there's no question. It was paved before, and it could be paved, but that hole there would have to be fixed. And, anyway, you folks know where I'm at.
Well, the drainage on the north side would need to be improved, so it
That
doesn't
needs to be
pool,
cleaned up a
so it
little
doesn't
better.
pool
Yeah,
up
that
there.
would come out
And we've
too.
had that conversation, and that,
No,
They just started
I
on
wanted
it.
to ask him what we
It's
were
better.
on that.
Yeah, they started on it.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, 'cause we had talked about that, the drainage on the north side, and
Yep.
that causes a soft spot, but I mean, I know that's a tough
We,
one to drain, but.
Actually, I went out and looked at that yesterday, I was trying to guess what fun things would come up in this meeting today, so, I think Matt, or the operator out there, just kinda dug a half-ass trench in there to get the water to move, and we're gonna come back, and it's gotta be all cleaned up, it's just you just cut a
Channel.
trench, it's
There's
not
just a
shaped
trench
at
in
all,
there,
yeah.
yeah.
And there's another one over, we gotta straighten something out over there by the,
By the bridge, on the way to the bridge.
yeah, on the top there.
It's
There's something honked
It
up.
needs to get going north.
Yeah.
It's
So it hasn't
holding
been-
everything right next to the road, and that road gets blocked.
Something to do, it's either that approach going into
The sewer goes.
the sewer deal, or it's the one going into the game and fish, I can't remember, but that's another thing, we'll get that on. The very top of that will go around the corner, but the rest of it, like Neil said, it's gotta go down the hill. Did that answer?
But we'd sure appreciate anything you can do on that stretch of road, 'cause man, it's been rough. We've been dealing with it for years, and you guys have got plenty of phone calls, I'm sure.
Dirk, if you would take the time to go out there, research it a little bit, come back with some numbers.
Yep.
What, any reconstruction would be necessary in addition to the paving, and let us know. As we go through our budget process, we can maybe take that into consideration.
It's gonna range, I'll give you the cheapest option. Well, actually, the cheapest option is what we're doing, but, start with a blotter, whether you like it or not, that's the cheapest thing. And that'll run you about 40 grand, up to, if we wanna mess with it, we'll have to get some, the one side of that's protected, the river, or the lake side of the road, we'll have to get some help from Game and Fish in order to move the dirt around. But if you're talking about a full grading job and doing all that, you're gonna get real close to $1 million. Maybe you got better dirt numbers.
No, I got a paving number, but the dirt number, that dirt number would be higher than the paving number.
Way higher.
Way higher.
Like 5 times, I would think.
Yeah, you're probably looking at $600,000 to do that whole thing, to widen the road and change all the slopes, 'cause those are 1-to-1 slopes down in them areas. They need to be 4-to-1 by right. 3-to-1 anyway.
Yep.
And then the paving numbers I got from Leans was $180,000 with a 3-inch mat. They just shot me that yesterday. They actually said that their oil, they were buying it at $500 a ton, and now it's jumped to $900, but they said for Richmond, they would lower it down to $750. Just to give you guys an idea. But I mean, yeah, $180,000 sounds like a lot of money, but that road would last, what, 20 years before if you did a 3-inch mat? You divide that into
I don't know, but apparently
$180,000.
there's a hell of a lot of truck
Well,
traffic
we
coming
gotta
out of
keep
Edmonds
them guys
County,
off
so I don't know.
But anyway, let's say 20 years, we're looking at, what, $9,000 a year? You don't look at the price of the road for the year, you look at the price of how long it's gonna last. So you amortize it out, it's $9 grand a year, and I bet you we could find that in our little area if you had to find it.
All right.
You might be right, if you come back to me, you'd be surprised, Mike.
Well, there's a bridge on the north side of the lake that gets done that way.
That's right.
Makes a difference.
So Dirk, you get back to us with some
I'm not trying to
numbers so we
discourage it,
can
but I'm saying it makes a difference.
make an educated
I know, I'm not
decision.
disagreeing, I don't have a problem throwing money.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Anything else
I
anyone would
wanna see it
like
done
to
good.
add? We'll have Dirk research it, get
Yeah,
back to
how
us with some
soon do
numbers.
you think you get back to us?
I would guess in the next couple of weeks, he will get back to us as he has time to put those numbers together.
Next week.
Next Tuesday. And we're in the middle of our budget process.
Well, you guys are gonna be in that thing for the pipeline next week, that ought to be fun, so.
I think we got most of it hashed over today, so.
And nobody brought rolls.
All right,
Okay.
thanks for coming in, everyone, we appreciate your time.
Thank you for coming. You're welcome.
Call me, let me know what we got. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Number you want me to call that in?
You bet. Thanks for coming.
Go ahead.
I have one more thing.
Yes.
I believe you're on the Edwards Preserve.
Yes.
I was appointed for the sanitary district.
Okay.
I've been talking to Alex Little, and we'd like to put together, finally get together, because I don't think anything's happened since
No.
it was once
No.
it was established, so.
We've tried a
Should I
couple
reach out
times.
to you and try to work out a time? I don't have the fourth gentleman's contact
Little bit.
information.
We got.
Yeah.
Reach out to you and-
We're trying to organize something,
We'll throw that.
see if we can all get together.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
All right, Mr. Jones has a right-of-way occupancy for us.
I keep forgetting to bring this up here, but.
New map, all right.
Well, just a little reminder, the pink's what we've upgraded to gravel, and the blue is what we've added to the system that's hard surface, so I just wanna keep that there.
For reference.
Yep. I got a right-of-way occupancy, if I can find what I did with my stuff. It's for, Frollings and Mike Elson up at 5 and 5A. And it's going through the road right there, and it is a drain tile. They're gonna hammer it through, so that's cool. They're not gonna cut the road. And as you can see from the culverts, or if you look at an aerial photo, the Dry Run Creek is right there. So, I mean, right where the exit is, the creek runs right beside the road and exits right into the creek. So, I mean, from the drainage standpoint, where sometimes that's an issue where the outlet's going, in this particular case, it isn't, because it's going right in.
Going to the right spot.
So, I recommend it
Over
for
to the gym room.
for approval.
Move it.
Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss, to approve the right-of-way occupancy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. What is today? 12? 12.
Yep.
12.
7/12. Oh, yeah.
So, Feldheim.
What I got next on there? Oh, the road closure for, is that the?
Yes,
Columbia celebration.
So, it's the same kind of thing we have with these other communities. There's a church in Columbia, and this is the big lot where the school used to sit.
Yep.
They asked to close this 2 blocks. The request comes from the community. They've got a detour picked out, and we're just gonna have them get a couple official, real signs put out in front that say road closed, and then they've got their area picked out, so. Just like, I guess we do with Warner, when, I feel differently when the community is the one asking to close the road, you know? So, they're kinda covering their stuff, and they're gonna have quite a celebration up there, so.
So you need a motion?
I don't know how to do that, they just requested, I don't know what you guys do with
We
when
do something for
Warner
Westport
asks.
every year.
We
Right,
just-
in Warner.
Basically, it was,
Westport. Oh, I'm
Scott
sorry.
Mites, just calls the fire department, police department, and notifies them of the detour and the road closure. We've never made it as a final motion, because Westport does that every year too.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the proper way, but I would think that we should be covered by doing it.
Yeah, we can acknowledge it.
Okay. And they are aware of that.
This came from me through the sheriff, so, came to me from the sheriff.
And Scott Mites been aware.
Yeah, we'll let him know. Okay.
The only thing I have is a reminder, the bridge inspection work order. If you have gotten that to the state.
Oh. Okay, I haven't.
Okay.
When'd you get that?
This morning.
Okay.
And it's to you too, so.
Okay.
When you get back, you'll see it.
While you were having all this other fun, that's.
It's from Cody Axland, looking for the IMEG agreement.
Yep, okay, for bridge inspections.
Correct.
Yeah.
Please get me a scanned copy as soon as possible, is what it says, so.
All right.
That's all I have.
Oh, it wasn't too bad.
No.
Okay, I got a few things. I don't think you have to act on any of this, because it's not on the agenda, but just my little department update. We should be finishing down in 23 finally today, and then we're gonna move up that 2 miles to do north of Claremont with our paving crew. And then Ashtec should be chip sealing Road 9 in Claremont today, and that's gonna be our payment for them putting their stockpile in there without asking. So we're gonna get 4 miles of road chip sealed, so I thought that's a pretty good deal.
Good deal.
Louisa's up working on Road 5, and they got 3 miles left up there, so probably end of the week, end of the week, they should be done, have that all milled. And then we're gonna haul a little gravel in there, and then they're gonna come back in September and stabilize it. We'll inject some chemical in there and kinda get it ready, and then that'll be a big paving job for next year. I'm gonna probably farm it out too, so it might be a big number, but it'll be about half our paving will be going into that up there next year. Unless the price goes away to hell and gone, and then...
It's coming down, haven't you seen?
Not yet.
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, 4.
I see lumber's coming down. If I find something to do with lumber, I should be in good shape.
Yeah. Well, you build bridges?
Yeah, build
Timber
bridges.
bridges.
Put some planks up.
Jim River is down, it's going down a couple inches. The Jim's still 17 and the Crow is 16, so we got a long ways to go yet, but It is down 3 inches, I think, from last week.
Is the MOG unloading at all? I wonder, do you have any idea? Foot
I
Creek,
don't
Foot
think
Creek
so.
has just been flying. I
Yeah.
mean, there's water coming into Richmond, unbelievable.
Yeah, that's going really good. We were out there yesterday, it's going over the spillway and everything, pretty steady. I haven't looked though down here to see if it's having any trouble where it runs into the
The
bog or
flushing
not.
through mine is going pretty fast too.
Oh, yeah, we went and looked at that. They had a culvert failure
Thank
up on the
goodness.
north side of that.
Thank goodness it goes the other way.
This time.
I see, did you guys get the printout about the local infrastructure money? I thought you had that spreadsheet sitting there with the distribution on it, but we're gonna get maybe I was seeing shit. We're gonna get we're gonna get $199,000. I'm sorry about my language, I'm trying. I really am.
Well, if you wouldn't have said anything, maybe nobody would.
No, I don't know. I just noticed that.
You
just expect it from me.
Part of our conversation.
Yeah, it is. But we're gonna get $199,000. I don't think I printed out all those. I'll email you that. Did you get that email that had it's got the distribution on each county and how much money you're getting from the 11 point, or the distribution for the
Structures.
yeah. And I don't wanna take the time since you're having such an abbreviated meeting today already, but, Brookings County has the most, 642, and now remember, these are just the ones that are bigger than 15.9, so these are basically 5 foot and bigger culverts. I was trying to figure that out. Brookings has 642, we have 137. We have the most stream crossings in the state. If you take the stream crossings and lay them over the road system in each county, I'm talking all of them now, the township and state and all that, and you lay that over there, Brown County has the most of those intersections. So we have the most locations that could potentially have some kind of pipe there in the whole state. But we only have 137 of them that are big, because most of ours you can get by with an 18, and we just don't have that many. And I sat and looked at that. If you get over there, Moody County and McCook County is another one, but Moody County and Brookings and everything on the east side over there, their system, they have way larger numbers of larger pipe because of the terrain, you know?
It's moving.
Exactly.
The water's moving.
And then,
Ours sits still.
the one that was interesting is McCook County. 4 McCook counties will fit in Brown County geographically and still have a little left over, okay? They've got 171 of these large pipe in McCook County. We have 137. At their rate, we would have 690 or something in Brown County. So, I just was looking at the numbers, and I get fascinated and I nerd out on statistics, but when I'm looking at, we have the most stream crossings in the state, but we're probably in the 35th or 40th percentile for how many of these big culverts we have. It's kinda interesting to me.
We got lots of big ones.
Yep.
Little ones, excuse me.
We have a lot of bridges compared to a lot of these. So anyway, there'll be 200,000. That form got sent out that the towns and townships kinda threw out there. I haven't heard from anybody where they've said, here's your form to give to the townships, but, they should be able to apply for the money and a lot of stuff they can use it for, so.
Yep.
Number 4, talked about that. I visited with Mike Cornelius this morning about the Elm Lake project. They were wondering about they want to see if there's any materials they can buy from the county, the state can buy from the county, that we can put towards that project.
New road construction?
Yeah, like culverts and to buy them, like the state would buy them outside of the scope of the project, and then supply them for the project. Because they're getting a little scared about what the contractors, and we'll see. If it gets to be a wacky number once they bid it, then I'm gonna call Glenn over in McPherson County and see if we can't work something out to take it on ourselves, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, that's all moving forward. We should have the plans ready to put it out to a bid and at least see how bad the number is and then go from there.
Okay.
You mowing ditches on 10?
We're mowing somewhere, I would have to look.
North of 10, yeah.
North of 10?
Yeah, did you see that email too? That
I don't know. Who's it from?
Well, it went through Lunsman.
Anonymous.
Anonymous.
Oh,
Never
really?
happened. Never happened.
Yeah, they contacted the transportation department, and they don't do anything north of Highway 10. Yeah.
Part of North Dakota. Oh, sure.
Did anybody else get it?
I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got
Well,
it.
is it a complaint about, is it a weed complaint, or is it the
Well,
roads
now,
need to be mowed?
the grass and weeds are taller than the hood of the car.
Oh,
Yeah. They're mowing every place else, but they're not mowing up there.
yeah, I know, we don't mow there, we don't pave roads anywhere, we
But
don't.
you, Mike's got it and I got it.
I don't think I got it.
From Lunsman?
Yeah.
Well, it came through.
Well, it went through Lunsman.
Yeah, it was forwarded to the, whatever, just, you've been covered.
Well, then we throw in a comment about Hecla,
See?
road into Hecla.
Yeah. And then one of the individuals here made the comment that they get all the stuff up there, and I wanted to so bad pull it up and say, here's what happens up in the Hecla country.
That's why I mentioned it.
The Frederick shop is in pretty tough shape. I've got the, what's our company?
Public Insurance Line?
Yeah, they're coming, our insurance person, they're gonna send a appraiser, but they gotta get the structural guy, 'cause we got, I don't know,
You see them pictures?
I'd be surprised if, I wouldn't be surprised if they said, okay, we gotta take it down and start over, depending on how many of them meet, yeah, 'cause that corner piece is, when you get your main,
They did that with the hangar in Watertown for the airport and some other stuff from some of the other ones, so, yeah, they're gonna do an assessment of it and decide if it's
Yeah, I don't see,
worth saving.
I don't see how they cut that out and well back in. I mean, those beams, once they're sprung, I mean.
I know.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens.
Is that our insurance problem?
Nobody's got it wrong.
Buttering us up.
Thank you very much. Thank you, lady.
Wow.
Thank you.
So is that ours?
I don't know, that's why we turned it over, I don't know if that act of God stuff, or how that,
Took you serious.
You got a sense of humor. I love
Took
it.
you serious.
I think that's all I got, unless you guys got something else.
I don't believe so. Thank you, Dirk.
Yeah, I'll get you
There you
some,
go.
There's a name you recognize.
oh, God. That you sent that?
No, that's a different conversation.
Well, that's the.
I need a 1-minute break before we.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
need to hell, and see the one that,
Where we paved and.
yeah, they
cut it
put in
down.
the pipes or whatever.
Yeah, so.
Well, I can't keep them guys straight, 'cause the other one's Dennis's friend that was all happy, and then I got that one, I go, well, this must be a different last, different last name, because
Yeah.
I thought these guys were happy, but apparently they're not,
Well,
so.
all right. Be safe, Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
Or did you,
Probably not.
that FCPA, put that information in?
Getting punchy.
I haven't yet, I tell you what I did.
Yeah, keep them in the loop on that.
I will.
Yeah.
The first.
You bring your own,
Yeah.
you have your own board.
That's all the-
What do you new here?
I
don't even really know that it's
reversing this. Most of the stuff is racial. So it's not something where I'm
No.
take a look at it.
I don't have a plate or handy, I guess.
Oh, there's plates up there.
Since they went to the trouble, I'm
I
gonna
didn't
have
fill
one.
out the paperwork.
Yeah, he can, yeah.
Well, I know, but I just called them and I go, hey, we hire a structural engineer, how does this work? And she just goes, I'll just take care of it for you, I'll fill out the claim, so
Oh, okay.
they're doing it.
Yeah, but
I'm
keep in the
assuming,
loop that
yes, I
we
will.
got the claim, because when the check comes, we'll do it in the right place and everything.
Yeah,
Use your fingers.
I mean, comes down and we'll get moving the shop somewhere else. You don't care, but
That's hilarious.
it's not necessarily, we're gonna fix it. If it's like the whole thing's wiped out.
And the big tree bats.
Might reevaluate a better spot for us to have a shop in there, is what I'm getting.
Are we allowed to email, keep these?
They're here.
This would be considered a bribe for us.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can cell phone
Ruling on that.
I don't know if we can. Can we legally eat those? There you go.
Survive that meeting.
It could be considered, trying to sway us.
Just kidding, but hey.
And people would say, with the camera on, it doesn't take much. Well, we have a little, 2 come, 1 leaves, 1 goes, 3 show up.
I'll round it up here in a sec.
Yeah, 4-month study here a little bit.
Let's go.
I gotta get moving.
I'm okay. We're gonna do budget for an hour or so, or?
Well, we still gotta finish constitution here.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we do have quite a bit of budget to cover.
I gotta be at the dentist's office at 12, so.
I didn't get a budget meeting. Do you guys want me to get a budget meeting?
You got one.
Do I? Oh,
Yeah.
well,
I
there you
think
go.
you're next
Yeah,
week.
next week.
Next week?
Next week, Tuesday, yeah.
And if you
Get ready.
When's your last day?
You know, I'm gonna come to your office and just sit exactly in touch.
I got a pickup. I'll just go look at something else. No. When is your last?
I mean, I've got you balanced with your whole Friday. We would really appreciate your budget, like, sooner than later, think of that balance.
Well, you got the big number, right?
Yeah, so your balance has a big number, but we don't have any details or anything entered in.
I don't think he does either.
It'd be like 7.5 construction and $1 million equipment and $1 million payroll.
Well, if it's that easy, just write it down and give it to me.
Give him a napkin.
Dirty, put it in the back of this.
Scribble it on there quick.
Well, hell, let's just get going.
Right, yeah.
Mike must have got sidetracked.
So we have the, general meeting minutes of July 5th.
Move.
Second.
Motion by Fikert, second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claims.
Move.
Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Fikert. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
No HR report. Do you guys want to designate a dual check signature? We have dual signatures on our checks.
You had suggested one of the people in your office.
Yeah, I would suggest, my chief deputy who does the accounting, unless you have intention to swear somebody in on Monday.
I think we need to do this. I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Fikert, second by Weiss to designate the dual signatures. What's the name on that?
It'll be Brock Hoyle.
Brock Hoyle.
And then our other signature is our treasurer, Patty Van Meter.
Okay.
And this will just be in the interim until the new auditor is sworn in.
Okay. All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Auditor's report of accounts.
Move.
Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Lottery permit.
Move.
Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. I think that lottery permit was for the Brown County Fair Foundation.
For the foundation, that's separated from the county,
And
yeah.
I'm on that board, so I'm
Okay.
going to abstain. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
We have, to set the hearing date and authorize advertising bid opening for the indigent defense contract.
Move.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claim assignments.
Move.
Motion by Fikert,
Second.
second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Firework permit.
Move.
Motion by Gage,
Second.
second by Feldheim. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Quarterly interest.
Move.
Motion by Fikert,
Second.
second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
$100 or something.
We're missing some digits.
Huh?
We're missing digits.
Yeah.
Any other business come before the Brown County Commission this morning, as if we haven't had enough fun? All right, I believe we are in need of an executive session for personnel.
one small pending litigation thing to go over quick, but it'll only take a minute.
Okay, personnel and legal. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in exec. All right, we're out of executive session with no action as a result. Is there anything else to come before the Brown County Commission this morning?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.